Hi everyone, welcome to the introductory webcast on contract management. I am Abhishek Bidua. Today we will learn the basics of contract and contract management. On completing this video, you will be able to define contract, explain contract features of the contract, define contract management, and recognize the importance of managing the contract. You may be aware that government and private sector companies undertake projects such as roads, dams, power station, production facilities, plants, etc. The course of execution to these projects leads to a contract. However, projects looking to be similar in nature has its peculiarities and complexities. On the other hand, projects in different sectors such as infrastructure, power, oil, gas, and buildings will not have similar issues. Thus, for each project, contracts are set up according to the requirements of the project. In summary, contract management varies according to the project. Now, let us start with the definition of contract. Contract is a common business term. Here, in the definition, as per Contract Management Body of Knowledge published by NCMA, a contract is an agreement enforceable by law between two or more competent parties to do or not do something not prohibited by law for legal consideration. It involves both an offer and acceptance. All contracts are agreement, but all agreements are not contract. Generally, one party is termed as the seller, who provides a service or supply a product or perform a project for the other party, called as the buyer, in exchange for an agreed consideration. Now, discuss about law of contract. Contracts are administered with the contract law, which is based on the common law. In most of the countries, law of contract lays down the general principles relating to formation, performance, and enforceability of contract. Also, it is technically supplemented by other laws such as Company Law, Uniform Commercial Code, Partnership Act, etc. Let us see what are the essential features of a valid contract. Essential features of a valid contract involves two or more parties that have the capacity or competence to contract. It should define the identity of the parties, stakeholders to the contract, details of the agreement, which include the transaction and consideration, the offer, acceptance, and the mutual assent. It should be between competent parties and in correct form. Legality of the purpose of the contract is an important aspect. Should not violate a public policy or statute. Now, let us discuss about what is the contract management. When an employer signs a contract with a contractor, the arrangement cannot be left to just run by itself. Contracts involve men, material, machine, money, and time. It is therefore very important to proactively manage the contract. Contract management enables the parties to contract to fulfill their contractual obligation while ensuring that the contract meets the optimum combination of cost, time, safety, and quality during the contract period. Let us see aim of good contract management. The aim of good contract management is to ensure the contracting parties' agreed contractual position is protected. Deliverables are made in accordance with the contract to the required standards while achieving value for money within the agreed time frame. Agreed allocation of risk between the employer and contractor is maintained. Contractor's performance meets the output specification. The financial remedies for failure to perform are taken into consideration and applied. Payments are conditional upon the contractor's quality of performance and continuous improvement in contract performance and service delivery is maintained. Now let us talk about contract terminology. Offer: a legally binding promise made by one party, normally the contractor, to another party, the employer, to enter into a contract. Any offer must have the description of the item, delivery time, price, and terms and conditions. Now let us move on to acceptance. The act by another party, normally the buyer, assent the ownership of the identified supplies or services as partial or complete performance and must be communicated. It is the mirror image of the offer. It may be conditional, expressed, or implied. In most of the construction contract, acceptance is divided in two parts: provisional acceptance and final acceptance. Final acceptance are given after the completion of mandatory warranty period. Let us see revocation of offer. An offeror may revoke the offer before it has been accepted, but the revocation must be communicated to the offeree. However, revocation of the offer can lead to encashment of bid security. Let us see acceptance criteria. The acceptance must be always communicated and can only be accepted by the offeree, that is, the person to whom the offer is made. If the offer specifies a method of acceptance, then acceptance must be by a method that is no less effective from the offerer's point of view than the method specified. Let us see the definition of works. It refers to task or service performed to comply with the deliverables of a contract. Temporary work is the work performed to facilitate the construction of any required work by providing access, support, and protection for the facility, as well as assuring the safety. Reinstatement of the work is an important aspect. Permanent work, tasks performed as a part of the scope obligation but would remain as a component of the deliverable under the contract agreed. Now let us see the definition of plant. Any equipment that is required to be installed as a part of the permanent works termed as plant. Contractor's equipment refers to machinery, scaffolding, tools, etc. which the contractor takes away at the end of construction. Time for completion is the duration stated in the contract and it starts from the commencement date. Commencement date refers to date assigned for the start of construction as per the notice to commence or a letter of acceptance received by the contractor. Now let us look at type of contracts. On the basis of type of service, contracts are broadly categorized into contracts for supply of goods, works, consulting services, non-consulting services, there are also other types of contracts which are case specific. Contract categories broadly based on the type of services are the following. Construction contract. It relates to construction involving either civil, mechanical, electrical and instrumentation engineering or a combination of these. Consulting service contract deals with services of both intellectual and advisory nature. The other type of contracts are service provider contract, partnership contract, franchise contract, joint venture contract, employment contract, and I understand that everyone knows about employment contract, supply, manufacturing contract, lease and rental contract. We also know about this because most of the people use lease or rental contract to rent house or vehicles, financing and funding contracts, health and insurance contract, procurement and purchase contract. Let us next see the contract classification on the basis of remuneration scheme. In general, contracts on the basis of remuneration classified into 4 groups: fixed price lump sum contracts, unit rate remeasured contracts, cost reimbursement contracts, time and materials contracts. Now let us see what is the fixed price lump sum contract. These types of contracts generally provide for a firm price or in appropriate cases an adjustable price. Following are the features of fixed price contract. The clarity of the scope definition is a must. The seller is responsible for quantity changes. The seller has the risk of price fluctuations, provides enough opportunity for fair competition. In fixed price contract, price is not subject to any adjustment and the seller has maximum risk and full responsibility. Fixed price contract gives maximum incentive for the seller to control the cost, and it gives minimum administrative burden on all parties, especially to the employer. Fixed price contract are separated into following 6 types: firm fixed price contract, fixed price with economic adjustment contract, fixed price incentive contract, fixed price with prospective price redetermination contract, fixed price with retroactive price determination contract, firm fixed price label of effort term contracts. Detailed discussion on the classification of firm fixed type of contracts is a subject of separate class. Now let us move on to unit rate or remeasured contracts. The remeasured contract typically contains a priced BOQ using estimated quantities for all the items of work. During the construction period, the actual quantity of works executed under each BOQ item will be jointly measured and valued at the quoted rate for interim payment purpose. At completion of contract, the exact quantity of works finally executed under each BOQ item will be again remeasured for the final measurement purpose and valued at the quoted rates in the contract to evaluate the final contract price. Remeasurement contracts are frequently used for agreements with subcontractors. Arguably, this type of contract is fair with the buyer at risk for total quantities and the seller at risk for fixed unit price. Now let us see the requirements of remeasured contracts. In remeasured contracts, adequate breakdown of definition of work unit is mandatory. Good quantity surveying and reporting system is required. It should provide sufficient design definition to estimate quantities of unit. It requires experience in developing bill of quantities, and payment terms should be properly tied to measured work completion. Owner furnished drawings and materials must arrive on time. Quantity sensitive analysis of unit price to evaluate total bid price for potential quantity variation should be performed. Now let us move to cost reimbursable contracts. Cost reimbursement type of contracts provide for payment of allowable incurred costs to the extent prescribed in the contract. These contracts establish an estimate of total cost for the purpose of obligating funds and establishing a ceiling that the seller may not exceed except at its own risk without the approval of the buyer. Cost reimbursement contracts are used when the risks are very high, seller has adequate accounting system, the buyer surveillance during performance will provide reasonable assurance that efficient methods and effective cost controls are used. Let us see what are the cost reimbursable type contracts. Cost reimbursable type of contracts are divided into following 6 categories: cost contract, cost sharing contracts. In cost sharing contracts, employer and contractor shares the cost. Cost plus incentive fee contract, cost plus award fee contract, cost plus fixed fee contract, cost plus a percentage of cost contract. Detailed discussion on the above classification is a subject of separate class. Let us now discuss about time and materials contracts. A contracting arrangement under which the seller is paid on the basis of the following: actual cost of all the direct labor, usually at a specified hourly wage rate, shall be reimbursed to the contractor. Actual cost of all materials consumed and the equipment uses shall be reimbursed to the contractor. It will be on the basis of agreed upon fixed add-on to cover the seller's overhead and profit. Time and material type of contract can be subdivided into following 7 types: labor hour contract, letter contract, cost plus incentive fee contract, cost plus award fee contract, cost plus fixed fee contract, cost plus percentage of cost contract. The detailed discussion on these types is a subject of another class. Therefore, let us move about the factors affecting selection of contract types. Factors affecting selection of contract types are current price competition, market trend and forecast, extent and nature of risk to be assumed by each party, period of performance, duration, milestones, nature and complexity of the scope of work, urgency of requirement, contractor's technical capacity, contractor's financial responsibility, adequacy of contractor's accounting system. All these factors affects the decision for the selecting of a particular type of contract. Now let us look at the composition of contract. Contract agreement, which also called as a contract form, a standard form of agreement signed by both parties, properly recording all the terms agreed, including the documents listed as integral part of contract agreement. Contract form is a legally binding document and it must be carefully prepared to comply with the requirements of the relevant law. Letter of tender or tender form. It is a form of tender completed by the contractor and includes the signed offer to the employer for the works. Tenderer confirms that he has read and understood the requirements stated in the tender documents and states his undertaking for the compliance with his obligations under the contract. Appendix to tender. It includes summary of the information originating from the particular and general conditions of contract. It prepared as a summary table and includes financial, administrative and contractual information such as contact detail of parties, law and language of the contract, contract duration, disputes and arbitration, provisions, amounts for securities and guarantees, delay damages, advance payment and repayment amortization, retention money provisions, minimum amount of interim payments, insurance provisions, and dispute resolution mechanism. There is a possibility that the above information may also be included elsewhere in the contract document. Conditions of contract refers to general conditions of the contract and particular conditions of contract. General conditions of contract are customized by using the standard contract forms. The particular conditions of the contract are customized form of general conditions of contract wherever the general conditions of contract is not applicable. Particular conditions prevails over the general conditions. Particular conditions changes, replaces, revises the clauses of the general conditions. Particular conditions should be in line with the local law and law of the contract. Clauses in particular conditions should not be conflicting with the clauses of the general conditions. Any revision, additions, omissions done by the particular condition should be based on rational reasoning. Priority of documents is very important and it should be readdressed for every project through particular conditions. Specifications provides the information about scope of works, general and technical requirements of the contract. It also provides the information about material standards, details of the samples to be provided and tests to be carried out are also provided in the specifications. Method of executing the works is also included in the specifications. Provisions of access or space for other contractor is also part of specifications. Drawings. It should be adequately detailed in conjunction with the specifications. The bill of quantities and the nature and scope of the works included in the contract. In most contracts, supplementary drawings will be issued as the works proceed. However, it should not delay the progress as planned. In case of EPC nature of work, draft layouts and conceptual indicative design drawings are thought to be sufficient. Bill of quantities and schedule of payments as applicable should be included in the contract. Bill of quantities is a list of items giving descriptions and estimated quantities of works to be executed under the contract. It assumes a remeasurement form of contract, although that does not preclude the inclusion of a number of lump sum items in the BOQ. provided their scope is adequately defined under the contract. In EPC nature of works, a schedule of payment having a breakdown of the lump sum cost defining the components of the works filled in by the contractor at the tender stage is included. Interim payments for both is made on the basis of defined percentages, milestones, or the works completed. Agreed construction methodology should be included in the contract document. Any other documents forming part of the contract, such as quality assurance plan, should also be included. Now, let us examine the issues that can crop during the contract management. Issues during the contract formation are following: poorly defined terms and conditions, contradictory drawings or technical specifications. Now let us talk about the issues that may come during the contract management. It starts from the issues during the formation stage of the contract. So let us see what are the issues that can come during the formation of a contract. It includes poorly defined terms and conditions, contradictory drawings or technical specifications, and failure to include clearly defined provisions such as damages and price adjustment could lead to scope creep. Let us see what are the bidding issues. Inadequate assessment of qualifications of bidders such as experience, technical expertise, financial standing, human resources, and so on. Collusion between bidders is also an important bidding issue. For example, lowest bidders withdraw their bids and are later found as subcontractors to the awarded and more expensive bidder. Let us talk about management issues. Unclear and or misunderstood roles and responsibilities, lack of experience in contract management, change in requirement, pricing errors or omissions, poor transition planning from bidding stage to post-award stage are very frequent contract management issues. Let us talk about financial issues. There may be delays in releasing of payments and delays in submitting performance guarantee and advance payment guarantee. Payment schedules may not be linked properly to the physical progress. This leads to front-loaded payments and the tendency to delay execution of the rest of activities once the bulk of the contract has been paid. Therefore, all the payment schedule should be properly linked to the physical progress. Now let us see some implementation issues. Implementation issues which affect contract management are storage, delivery, transportation problems, adversarial relationship among owner, contractor, and end users, non-availability of required work permits, right of way, failure or refusal to perform by contractor, lack of control over subcontractors, failure to define key milestones that have a major impact on the completion, failure to define key performance indicator KPIs, delays in submission and approval of program of works. Normally it is seen that in most of the contracts, contractor delays in the submission of the program and employers delays its approval of the program. Delays in submission of drawing and its approval by the employer. Delays in submission of invoices or submission of incorrect invoices is also a primary cause of late payments in most of the contracts. Delays in resolving issues during contract implementation. Delays in inspection or test. Delays in constitution of dispute resolution boards. Finally, delays in handing over of site free of encumbrances is also a contractual issues. Impact of these issues encountered during the contract management leads to the over budget, delay in commencement of operations, poor customer service, and it affects public image of an organization. Now, let us revisit what we have discussed till this point of time. In this webcast, we learn definition of contract. NCMA defines a contract as a contract is an agreement enforceable by law between two or more competent parties to do or not do something not prohibited by law. For legal consideration involves both an offer and an acceptance. We also discussed about governing law and contract administration. We talked about features required for valid contract. Key features for a valid contract are capacity to contract, an offer, and acceptance. We also discussed what is contract management. We talked about contract terminologies such as offer and acceptance, contract types, and how the contract types are selected for a given project. We also learned that if the contracts are not managed properly, it can reflect poorly on the project budget, company's operations, public reputation, customer service. Thank you very much.